Hi, everybody. Welcome to our community conversation. I am Gloria Lara. I'm the Executive Director of the Lakeshore Ethnic Diversity Alliance, and we call ourselves LEDA, L-E-D-A for short. We started having these community conversations shortly after George Floyd was murdered. We saw a need for people in the community to speak out, but we also saw a need for other people in the community to learn and listen and to try to understand. The response has been extremely positive, and as I said earlier at the very beginning, is we intend on continuing these every Wednesday at 2. You can view them on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube channel. And at the very end, I'll get you that information. But we we have had people viewing them afterwards as well through our website. And so we are getting ready to hopefully turn all of the previous ones and the future ones into podcasts. So you'll also receive a notice about that when they're available as podcasts. You can download them and listen to them as you're going about your business. So today, I'm really pleased to introduce and have Shutaveya Ward be part of our conversation today. Shutaveya is well known to many people in Holland. She is currently the relationship manager at 70 times 7. They help life recovery for returning citizens. They work with people in recovery, as well as extra support for people who need help in getting on with their lives. So, Shutaveya, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So, let's talk about how you came to, you've been a part of the Holland community for some years. You grew up in Western Michigan, so you're very familiar with this whole environment. But can you please tell us your thoughts in helping to organize Georgia's peaceful unity demonstration on June 7th in Holland? How did that come about?
Sure. Um, this unity demonstration is actually a side effect of another event that I had tried to plan in Holland circa 2016. There was a similar police brutality event that happened in the United States. And at the time, I was working at the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Holland. And I kept getting questions from the teens that I was working with about how they should interact with the police in order to not be murdered. And different questions that I wasn't really sure how to answer. And so in 2016, I reached out to the Ottawa County Sheriff's Department, the HPD, and also the Holland City Council. And I set up a meeting to happen with all of us so that we could talk. It was a community event that was supposed to happen at the Boys and Girls Club that was canceled the day of the event due to some claim. And so that event never happened. But one of my Boys and Girls Club teens was watching me. And when everything happened with George Floyd, she decided to reach out to me and ask if I could help her plan something where we could come together as a community and say that we didn't like this, that Black Lives Matter, and that we're going to stand together in unity. And so that's kind of how that event kind of started. The young lady, she's now a young woman in her early 20s. She And I tried to work on some things together, but it started to get really big. We posted the event on Facebook, and within a matter of days, we had hundreds of people that were interested in coming. And so we wanted to branch out and invite another community leader, Henry Cherry, who had a conversation with LEDA last week, to help us with this because it was bigger than we had imagined. And so the three of us worked really hard to make sure that we were following all of the COVID-19 guidelines and made sure that there was PPE available for everyone that attended, which we didn't know because by the time it was a couple of days before the event, the invite on Facebook had over 2,000 people that were interested in coming. So we wanted to prepare for that many people. And we did that. We also collaborated with the police department. We wanted them to know that this was not a violent or a looting attempt or anything like that. We just wanted to come together in unity. And in order to do that, we do need to include the police. They are a part of our community as well. And so we also collaborated with community churches, local churches that haven't been able to meet for months, but people wanted to do something. So we kind of all just came together and it became what it was.
Wow, that's it's amazing how an idea can really grow. And kudos to the young woman who reached out to you because what she realized is that it's possible to have an idea and have that grow and then have that affect, you know, other people. Uh, that's pretty amazing how it got started and what it ended up. So, you know, please share with us your thoughts when, you know, the day of the event, you get to the park and you start setting up, and then people start coming. Please share with us what your thoughts were.
Absolutely. I remember pulling up to the event space and just feeling great. We picked out a really beautiful space, which the space was actually suggested by the police. They had suggested that we use that area. There was a lot of room for parking and a lot of room for people. There was already a stage set up, and we started setting up our sanitation stations and our water stations. And it was really cool. I went live on Facebook there, and people just started to slowly come. You know, I look up, there's 15 people. I look back up, there's about 50 people. I look up again, there's about 200 people. I look up again, there's about 700 people. Um, and people just kept coming. The way that it was set up, we all met in one central location. We had a few people speak. And then we walked to the Unity Bridge that's on River in Holland. And as we were walking to the Unity Bridge, people that were driving by were parking their cars in local businesses and coming and marching with us. So when we were at our location, I think there were maybe 1,000 people there. When we got to the Unity Bridge, it went from about 1,000 to about 3 to 4,000. I had never seen anything like that in my life in Holland, Michigan, and I was not expecting that because there was so much division going on at the time in our country. I didn't really know what to expect, but I knew that there were people that just wanted to stand next to their neighbor, no matter their color, and say, "You matter." And to see that, to see the love, to hear the people driving by honking their horns and putting their signs up in their car if they couldn't stop, it was powerful. You know, like you said, I've lived in this community for most of my life. And to see something so grand, so mixed with different races, different ages of people come together. It was beautiful and something that I don't know if anyone expected that to be the outcome in Holland, Michigan, which is, really, really a Dutch town, really a conservative place. But there were a lot of people that had a voice that day, and it was really exciting and cool to be a part of that, to know that history happened that day. And I was a small piece of that history. Was awesome.
I know my husband and I went there as well, and I was hiding. We were like behind a tree in the park, but I was amazed that, like you said, the wide variety of people, ages, colors. I mean, everyone was being very careful to wear their masks and be socially distant, and but yet to stand up for something that they believed in. And thank you so much for helping make this happen, because I think it gave so many people a completely different view of Holland. What Holland is really like.
Mhm.
Um, and that
And
was
I will
that was
say, sorry,
no, go
I will
ahead.
say, when I left there, I felt hopeful. And I think that was the thing that I needed the most after the George Floyd incident happened and I saw our country fall apart. We had been in quarantine in Michigan. We had been locked down, and actually, my first day back at work, the George Floyd video was released. So I had already had just been struggling, trying to figure out how to live life in 2020 with COVID-19 and figuring out, when I can go to the grocery store, if I can or not. And then coming back to work and hoping for some normalcy. And that video was released, and the world went crazy. And that hope that I needed, I felt like I got it that day when we walked back to the location from the bridge, and um, everybody was just smiling and happy and hopeful, and I just felt different when I left that day.
It was yeah, it was, I thought, pretty amazing as well. And I think a lot of people felt like you did, is hopeful. People are willing to listen. People are willing to take action. It's like, let's not let this time slip by without us moving forward. And I think that's it's one of the legacies of the peaceful demonstration, is it shows that there are so many of our neighbors
Mm.
you may not know by looking at them that they feel this way, but you saw them out there in the park that day and on the
Mhm.
bridge.
Mhm.
So yeah, so great. I mean, thank you for sharing with us. Is there anything else you'd like to say about that day before we move on to our next area?
Sure. I just want to say that, that was a beginning step in the process of reconciliation, and ending systemic prejudice and racism in our community, because it is alive and well in Holland, Michigan. I want to be very clear about that. But that unity demonstration was a first step in our community coming together, using our collective voices. I don't, it wasn't a bunch of powerful people, it wasn't a bunch of rich people, it was just people um, using our voices for the greater good. And, I want us to continue to do different things. It doesn't have to be a unity demonstration with 3,000 people, but hey, you can speak up for the person that's being bullied because of their skin color at work. or the friend that's saying something that might be a little racist or prejudiced. Maybe they don't recognize it, but it's the small things that we can continue to do so that we can actually see lasting change. Because this event happened last month, we're still well, actually 2 months ago now. We're still talking about it, which is great. But next year, August, we might not be talking about it anymore. But what other steps are we taking? What other things are we doing in our community where we can actually enact change, where we can actually do something? What are we doing? And it's an individual thing. We can come together. Again, I would love to do that, but we can do small things every day to create change. And I think that's important to leave with that.
Great, thank you. Those are very hopeful words, and I hope people who are watching and listening now and also in the future, thanks to the wonders of technology, as my 92-year-old dad keeps saying, um, it's heartening to see people of all ages really focusing on that. So thank you.
Yes.
Um, so let's go to, unfortunately, a darker topic. You spent a lot of your time working with youth in Holland, and the work that you do now with 70 times 7. You and I were together at a meeting where you spoke about the school to prison pipeline, which you have observed. Can you please share your observations and thoughts with us?
Sure. So in my previous role, I worked with teen members at the Boys and Girls Club, and I could tell you which ones were not going to make it. Simply because of the way that the school system and other authorities treated them. So I've noticed a lot that our young men of color are misunderstood. There's a gap between the school and individuals of color. I've noticed it more with our men, our young boys. So I had 4 different boys that were teen boys, not bad boys. I don't think that anybody is innately bad. I think that maybe their decision making was faulty. But I also think that they weren't really given the best chance with the parents that they were born into. But I knew that they just weren't going to be able to make it. With schools, a lot of times these kids of color are suspended much easier for much smaller things. They're chastised, they're spoken down to. Whenever there are consequences, they're almost always punitive. There's never really, they're never really treated like children. They're treated like adults. And for one of my kids, who is currently in prison, which if you had asked me 5 years ago, what did I think he would be doing? I would probably have said, I don't want him to, but I know where he's going. He wasn't given a chance. He tried to do school. He had been bounced around from foster care to foster care, not really cared for until he aged out of the system. And when he aged out of the system, he had nowhere to go. He had no family. And so he lived where he could live, and he got by how he could get by. And for a lot of people, that's stealing, that's living in places that aren't safe, with people that aren't safe. And that was his story. And now he is serving, he's now been in prison since he was 19. He's now 22. He has been flopped, which means he came up for parole and his parole was denied. So he will spend another year at least in prison where he will come up for parole again. And if his parole is denied again, he'll get another year. For his charges as a 19-year-old, he was given 5 to 25 years in prison. They weren't violent. He was a child who made a bad decision. But we see this, it's a pattern. And it's mainly with our Hispanic and our Black boys. I have a Black son, so I'm very interested in this. Because if we have no representation in the schools, if we have no one that takes the time to understand these young men and see how they can help them, we're not all going to fit in the square hole. Some of us are round. Then we are implicit in sending them to prison. This particular young man was suspended time and time again until he was expelled. And when he was expelled, there was no attempt in trying to get him back in. In the school district that the club that I worked at was in, the Boys and Girls Club that I worked at was in, they had an alternative education. And the school district is about 90% white. But the alternative high school was about 90% Hispanic and Black and about 50% males. So it doesn't really make sense. And I see it in the work that I do today. The people that are getting released from prison, they were never given a fair shot. And it was their, parents and society that kind of just left them to figure things out. And when you go to prison and you get every right that you have, even if it's only a few, taken away, and you're treated like you're less than a human, essentially a slave. You must do what the officers say you must do, or else. They don't come out the same. And we are sending them to prison as they're, young men trying to figure out their way, and really not a danger or threat to society. Maybe misunderstood, absolutely. But when they're coming out, sometimes they're coming out as criminals. They're coming out learning how to live in a world that isn't real. I'll give you another example. I have a man that I've been working with. He went to prison. He was 15 years old, and he got out when he was 22. So imagine being a 15-year-old going into a prison with people that are adults that are willing to do whatever they want. Some of them have nothing to lose. And you're a child, essentially. You are a child. You come out as a different person. He's never had a driver's license. He turned 16, 18, and 21 in prison with absolutely no rights. He's trying to work. He's trying to figure out life. But how do you do that when you were a child before you went in with a mom taking care of you? And now you get out and you have these rights, supposedly, but you're still treated like a second-class citizen. And now you have this record that is a barrier for you to get employment, to get housing. It's so much more than just going to prison. It's what happens after prison, if they even let you out. And we're seeing it happen time and time again with our men, our young boys, Hispanic and African American, when there are ways that we can help. I don't think that, maybe we can't help everyone, but I don't think that sending a child to prison is a solution for anything. And that's my opinion. So when we were at the meeting, I spoke about the school to prison pipeline because I think it's important for educators to understand the impact of their decisions. When you tell a student that they're no good and they're never going to be any good, they believe you. When a student knows that you don't like them, you don't want them to be in class, and every time they come to class, you're going to send them to ISS, or if they say anything snappy to you, you're going to suspend them, well, then they no longer want to come to school. You know, a lot of these younger teachers don't understand because they go to these all white colleges, nothing wrong with it, Christian all white colleges. They go and student teach at Christian all white schools, and then they get a job at an inner city school, and there's a culture shock. They're confused. They don't know how to deal with these people. But that should never be the student's responsibility. It should never be the student's responsibility to understand how to deal with the teacher. That is the teacher's job. But even more than the teacher, I'm going, principal. I'm going to the people that make the policies. Why are we suspending these kids for wearing hoodies? Why are we suspending these kids for speaking slang? Because you can't understand it? Instead of trying to code switch yourself or understand where these kids are coming from, what it looks like when they go home at night, if they have a home. We are putting the blame on the kids. We're putting the responsibility on the kids. So we can't blame them if they don't make the best decisions because they're being told they're not good enough. They're being shown they're not wanted, and they're being kicked out for trying. So there's got to be some kind of reform within the entire school system, excuse me, so that these kids have a safe space. It is not safe for an African American male student in Holland, Michigan, to walk to school every day, whether we want to talk about it or not. There's a major gang problem going on in Holland, huge. You won't read about it in the Holland Sentinel, but I'll let you know, it's huge. There's major gun violence going on and a major race war happening. These kids are affected too. So if they can even get to school through all of that, it's our job as the adults to try to keep them there, to try to educate them, and to try to help them get to a better outcome than prison. And there's so much more we can do. It's not just on the teacher's shoulders. It's on our shoulders as community members, as parents, as volunteer staff, as people that support our community. We need to support the whole community. And right now, our children are struggling and we're not talking about it, which is really unfortunate.
Those are very sobering words, Shutaveya, but the truth. I mean, we've seen this school to prison pipeline for many years, and people trying, some people are trying to understand how to change that. But if students don't feel safe, they don't have a safe place, or there's no effort to understand them. Earlier you were talking about the peaceful demonstration, leaving you filled with hope. How can we get that hope and transfer it so that our children can leave school with hope?
Yeah, I think it's about talking about it. In this community, we're very good at not talking about things that are ugly. I get it. We don't want, to have a bad name, and we don't want to, be known as the community that does this or not. We have Tulip Time. It's great. That's wonderful. And it is all great and wonderful, but we're not perfect. And the more that we push things under the rug and pretend like they're not happening here, the worse things are getting. It's getting harder to push things under the rug. There was a gang shooting last month in Holland, Michigan, down the street from where I work in Washington Square. So if we're not going to talk about it, people aren't going to know that there's an issue. We have to talk about this. We have to, in the school systems, we have to say, what can we do? I'm not a teacher. I don't know. I don't work with kids every day anymore. But I do know that the more that we talk about it, the more that we make plans for it, the more that we notice there's an issue, the more that we can find some hope in trying to get to a solution. There is a teacher that works at Holland Middle School, and she reached out to me. This was maybe 2 years ago now. She teaches English language arts, seventh grade. She has some African American boys in her class, and she could not connect with them. For whatever reason, she wasn't getting through. Their grades were slipping. She was concerned. She's reached out to parents. She didn't hear back. I'm her friend. We graduated from Holland Public together. And she knows that I love doing community work, especially when it comes to our children. And so her and I have partnered. It's those simple conversations. That's why I said earlier, that's not going to be on the front page of the Holland Sentinel, and that's fine. But it's something that we're doing small. She knows me. I know her. She's a teacher. She's in the school. She wants help for these kids. I'm willing to be that bridge. It's that simple. And we all can do that. Let's say you're a person just listening and you want to help somehow. Reach out to someone you know that works in a school, that has kids that go to a school, that drives by the school. You call the school. There are little things that we can do that are going to be steps into getting the solution that we're looking for. It doesn't all have to be a peaceful unity protest or demonstration that has 3,000 people. It can be 2 people in a room having a conversation, being real with each other, and trying to move towards a solution and sharing that.
Very true words, because that's how it starts. It starts with 2 of us talking together, trying to solve a problem, trying to address an issue, and it just grows. And everyone working together individually with someone else, that actually tends to be, it gets a life of its own. And like you said, unless you start talking about it, people aren't going to know about it. So think about all the talk that's going on right now about racism, about Black Lives Matter, about implicit bias. We really weren't talking about that in the past as much as we are now. And look at the hopeful, the progress, the knowledge, people reaching out saying, wow, I hadn't realized it was so bad. And these are white friends of mine, probably white friends of yours too. Saying that it's like they had no idea. And so people are gathering together to start acting on things in smaller groups. And I certainly hope that with your words, they can start doing that with, the Black and the Latinx, especially the young males in our schools, because they're our future, like it or not.
Absolutely.
They are our future, right? So thank you so much for your words. Comments are very inspiring. And are there any final words that you'd like to say before we're done for the session?
Well, I just want to thank you for allowing me on your platform to speak. And also thank you for what LEDA is doing in our community, and for your voice, Gloria, specifically. You're very inspiring, and it's wonderful to see a woman of color in leadership. And I just want to encourage everyone that's listening or that will listen, that one small thing that you can do can really enact change. So just keep trying. one small thing every day, every week, every month, every year, whenever you can do it. We are in this together, like it or not, and it's going to take all of us to really make a difference.
As you know, LEDA is not a political organization, but as we all just heard yesterday, there's a first-generation American, the daughter of 2 immigrants to the United States. And my daughter's going to say, "Mom, stop crying," but I can't help it. And a woman of color. She was selected as the vice presidential candidate for a major party. You know, our mission, Lakeshore Ethnic Diversity Alliance, we work to dismantle barriers to ensure that people of all ethnic backgrounds have equal access and the opportunity to participate fully in the life of the community. Whether your community is a small town, a state, or this country. And we're starting to see that. And as we have more and more conversations, we're starting to realize that number one, we're all in this together. And number two, there is more that unites us than what divides us. So please join us in taking action to make lasting change. We have a pledge on the homepage of our website. And if I could just find the banner on this. So this is our website, ethnicdiversity.org. It's on the homepage. Last I checked, we had close to 170 people signing this pledge. It's a call to action. It's our commitment to dismantling racism. Thank you so much for being a part of this, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much. Take care.